I am McKendrick, and this is not Trey, and this is another episode of the Cold-Blooded Caffeine Podcast. In this episode, we are going to talk about a recent trip that I was able to take out of the country to visit a place called Cuba. And on that trip, Mr. Victor Colbert joined me. He is the owner of Cast Iron Food Truck here in Charleston, South Carolina. So, Victor, welcome to Cold-Blooded Caffeine Podcast.
I appreciate the invite.
So, today's episode, we want to talk about the trip itself. A lot of people think that Cuba is not a location that you can travel to, but it actually is. When I made a couple of social media posts, some of the immediate responses were, I thought you couldn't travel to Cuba.
Yeah.
And actually, Victor has been how many times now?
This was my third time.
Third time going. So you can go to Cuba. Now, there are certain reasons that you have to select when you are making your arrangements. And I know, Victor, you're pretty familiar with some of those, right?
Yep, absolutely. Of course, support for the Cuban people is the one that we chose, and that I recommend that most U.S. citizens choose. But of course, education is another one. If you're in the education field and you want to go and learn, but keep in mind you have to actually do things that are going to fit into that education criteria.
That category. Right. Yep. So as you said, we went specifically to support Cuban people.
Absolutely.
That was what we signed up for through the for supporting the Cuban people. We had stuff like toys. What else we had?
Fishing equipment.
Yep. Jump ropes, baby dolls, all kind of things.
Yeah.
So we took our time. We went on a place called what we would call it probably a riverfront or a river walk.
Yeah.
But what do they call it over there?
The Malecon.
Malecon. Sounds fancy. Sounds fancy. But yeah, we actually took time out during the trip to walk the Malecon and give out gifts to whoever we saw. And we even got to a point where a family invited us into their home. So, I mean, you want to talk a little bit about that, Vic?
Yeah, actually, when we saw a family kind of, on their balcony, and we wanted to, give one of the little girls we saw, one of the doll babies and some toys maybe. But then some of the adults came out, and at that point, we figured this would be the best time to go ahead and give, some of the fishing equipment. And when we say equipment, like lures, fishing lines, things like that. We had over the counter medicine that is extremely difficult to get for people in Havana right now.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I thought it was amazing that they were saying that pharmacies just doesn't have this stuff. Right. And I think of it as, thinking about us Americans and how many times we throw expired medicines away.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's like, man, we got stuff on the shelf that we're not even using. And they over there, desperate for it and, just willing to take anything. So I'm glad that we were able to do that for them.
Yeah.
And even to see, to get invited into their homes was like, wow, like you trust us enough to allow us to come into your home.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it was definitely an awesome experience from the perspective of really seeing the culture, seeing how they live, seeing the things that they need, that they like. So it was, I would say one of those things that kind of touch your heart, right?
Yeah.
Because they live with a lot less. I think, one of the posts you had written about said they are like simple yet complicated, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like McKendrick was saying, the people there, there are things that, like we said, we take for granted on a daily basis, that you see their eyes light up when you give it to them, and it just it makes us feel good, and not that we're doing it just to feel good, but to literally, genuinely help someone. Just have just the simple products and
yeah.
So
Yeah, so that part of the trip was definitely good, value add, enjoyed it. But we experienced a whole lot more with the Cuban culture than just supporting the people. So this was my first trip there. So to me, the cars, oh my goodness,
yeah,
man, they have the like the all the classics that you can think of from like 1950s, 1960s.
yeah.
From I mean, I know I saw some Chevys, I saw Mercury. What else did you see? Anything else particular? Oldsmobiles, yep.
Yeah.
Convertibles, a lot of convertibles.
Yeah.
Oh man. Y'all go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and a lot of those vehicles are in mint condition on the outside.
On the outside.
That
is key. On the outside.
Yeah.
There's a few that are well maintained in and out, but on the outside, they are pristine.
Yeah.
When y'all came and picked me up from the airport,
you're right.
and I got in that car, I saw it. I was like, oh, look at that. We already doing it big, riding in a nice classic car. But then you get on the inside, it's kind of like, oh, okay. It's still a classic car. So riding down the highway, you looking good to everybody on the street.
Right.
But on the inside, they could definitely use some work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I'll say this: those cars aren't the most comfortable to ride in. We actually took a ride out to Vinales, the tobacco farms, and the ride out there was 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, yeah.
And that was taxing on the body, just to say the least.
Yeah, and we also discovered some of these vehicles aren't really equipped to go 2.5 hours because about halfway into our trip, we experienced a breakdown.
Yeah.
So we were rolling good, and the driver started hearing some strange noises. He stopped the vehicle, got out, checked it out, and went to crank it back up to get moving, and all you heard was knocking. I said, oh man, I think we done blew a head gasket or something.
Yeah. And it seems like, just from what the driver was saying, and you and Chad looking at the engine, it definitely seems as though that's definitely what it was.
Yeah, we saw leaks coming from kind of the gaskets right around the top of the head. I was like, oh man, I don't think you're gonna get this one back on the road. But luckily they called a replacement. So it was a taxi. He worked for an actual taxi company. So another one came. I mean, we still stood there on the side of the road for probably an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And we had intended to stop halfway anyway, but we didn't intend to be broke down.
Right, exactly.
On the side of the road.
Yeah.
But regardless, they sent another driver. We made it out to Vinales. Is that his name?
Yeah, Vinales.
Vinales.
It is actually spelled Vinales.
Okay.
So, but they pronounced the V as a B, so it's Vinales.
Vinales.
So, but here in the States, we're going to call it Vinales.
We are. We Americanize it, as some folks say. But when we got there, I mean, it was a pretty awesome experience. I mean, we took a lot of pictures. And out there is where we got to experience the cigar farm. And also, what's that area? Did it have a name that we stood over the cliff and looked at the mountains?
That was I can't remember the exact name, but but it's kind of like that stopping point that all of the tour buses and any tours that go out. There's down the hill, there's a pink hotel. It's actually a resort that a lot of people actually travel and stay in that resort. And for what I understand, Hurricane Ian last year tore the roof completely off of it.
Yeah, so I remember you talking about that. Yeah. And honestly, looking at it now, you can't even tell.
No, sure can't.
Yeah, it looks normal. Looks normal. So we did stop there first, and then we made our way to the cigar farm, which was definitely pretty cool. And I will be the first to say, I do not claim to be a professional cigar smoker, but when in Rome, do as Romans do, right? So I did indulge in a cigar while I was there, but to see and hear the education piece around like cigar making and rolling was also like fascinating to me. To see the farms, and how they harvest them and bring them in and the layers.
Yeah,
like, man, you know more about it than me,
right?
Vic, so you can speak to
and
some of that.
I was amazed to find out that from the time that they put the seedlings in the ground and they kind of broadcast it, it's almost a little over a year before that that plant is ready to be harvested, and from the harvesting and to the drying point,
right,
and being made into a cigar.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a long process, which is crazy.
And I'll tell you, McKendrick, I tell you one thing that it, as U.S. citizens, it's hard for us to understand, but their product, the product that they produce, they only get to keep 90. I'm sorry, they actually keep 10% of that product.
And y'all was telling us about that.
And
a hotline going there, man.
Yeah, I know. I might just and let me just.
It's all good.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, there's no one from Cuba calling.
Yeah, right. Cuba's calling. They hear us talking.
Yeah, but 90% of it goes to the U.S. I mean, I'm sorry, to the Cuban government of that harvest. But the one thing that I didn't realize is that even though 90% goes to them, the farmer doesn't put out any funds or money to create the product.
Right.
So they basically get to take that 10% and do whatever they, sell it themselves. As we actually purchased a few cigars while we were there.
Yeah, because I know they were saying there are some limitations, right? I think they were saying there's 50 cigars per bag that you can bring back. And then there was also stipulations around it had to come from the farm, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you buy it from basically the government or government store, which is one of the 90% that you'll see throughout the city,
exactly,
it has the label on it, and those are the ones that get flagged if you try to bring those back into the States.
Exactly. Which at this point, since September of 2020, if I'm not mistaken, we're no longer able to bring back cigars that were produced by like Cohiba or Partagas. So we can only bring back from the farm because it's classified as a souvenir.
Right.
So that's where we're allowed to bring.
Right. So yeah, that was interesting because of course, people find out you're going to Cuba. The first thing they say, bring me back some cigars.
Right. And rum.
Which, right.
Rum, we can't bring any rum back.
Right. You can't.
Well, you're not supposed to anyway.
Right. You can find a way to do it then.
Yeah.
We don't know nothing about that.
Exactly.
We just got a few cigars. We didn't get any of the rum to bring back. But yeah, so we did bring some cigars back. I mean, I got a few that I'm gonna give out to a few close friends of mine who I know smoke cigars pretty regularly. So I do have a few that I'll give out to some friends. But again, it was fascinating just to see the cigar farm, knowing it takes over a year for them from the time it's planted to harvest. And then the whole wrapping and rolling process was, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, like I said, interesting to see. Not being a cigar smoker, to me, was definitely fascinating to know that even the layers that he talked about are flavored layers to make sure you maximize the taste that you experience when you're smoking the cigar. I'm like, man, this is details and education I knew nothing about. But it does kind of make me want to indulge a little bit more now that I'm like to start experiment with some of those flavors that we had on the cigar farm. So that was cool. All right, what else did we do?
Yeah. Oh, and while we were out there, we part of the tour package that we had, they actually took us to lunch.
Oh yeah.
So we got to eat lunch, and it's called a paladar. And basically a paladar is a privately owned restaurant, which technically, as U.S. citizens, those are technically the only places that we're able to eat without, I guess any going against support for the Cuban people. We're not supposed to go into like a government-owned restaurant. And it, to me, eating at the paladar, it makes you, really enjoy and appreciate the true Cuban food cooked by a Cuban family.
Right.
Because we ate and it was family style.
It was.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
brought everything out on the table, and
Mhm.
we ate good, actually, real
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Speaking of, the food was something else that was actually pretty good. Like you can tell there's a lot of differences with how they
Absolutely.
prepare food versus how we prepare food. Like
Yep.
we tasted some things and felt like it wasn't enough seasoning.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just our taste palette is so, used to how things are prepared in the US versus, in Cuba.
Yeah.
And even some of the dishes, like I thought about it was like a salad, not a salad. The white, what was it? It was on the table.
The slaw,
slaw. Yeah, it was some kind of chef slaw that they made.
Mhm.
It was decent, but I was like, man, this is nothing like it would
Right,
taste
right.
if you were back at home, right?
We were looking for some mayo and sugar and vinegar
right.
added to it, but
No,
yeah,
they don't add none of that.
Right.
None of that.
Which to me is good to get out of our comfort zone and eat a product that is natural, without a ton of preservatives in it, and that's where the flavor doesn't come through because we're used to those preservatives, stuff that we can't pronounce.
Yeah, exactly.
That's in the food. So
exactly, and the fruit was different as well. Like we had watermelon, which is pretty common, but the other two were had
the papaya and guava.
Guava, yeah. Those are the two fruits.
Yeah.
So that's pretty common. Like you don't necessarily see those as widespread here. Not that you can't get them, but like that was the fruit that came out with the meal.
Exactly.
That was pretty good. And oh my gosh, lobster.
Everywhere you go, lobster.
Everywhere you go.
Yeah.
When you walking down the street, the first thing they tell you when they say, "Why don't you come in and experience food from my location?" We got lobster.
Right.
Like my goodness, a lobster was everywhere you went.
Everywhere we went.
So it was plentiful. So if you are a lobster lover or you enjoy eating a nice lobster, go to Cuba. You can get it almost on every corner.
And it was something to see it prepared, and because I personally ate lobster 4 times, and I think it was prepared differently every time.
Yep. So that's the thing as well. Like depending on where you go, you may get a completely different taste just because the chef is doing what chefs do and they make it different. So
exactly,
you may not get it the exact same everywhere you go, but man, I don't think I had any bad lobster while I was there at all. So so that was cool. So the food is definitely another reason that I would say, check out Cuba. They got some, great restaurants that you can go to. They're everywhere. Where we stayed. So let's talk about where we stayed, because we did, again, supporting the Cuban people. We did an Airbnb that was kind of right in the heart of
Havana Vieja,
right? Vieja,
which is old Havana. Yep. So we were right there in the neighborhood.
Right downstairs. Nice restaurants that we went to, frequented for like lunch or appetizer type stuff in between meals, or as we were waiting for our other 2 friends to come down, we'd go down and grab something to eat, something light until we go out to eat later on. But that area is actually a very popular area, and I think you stayed there before, right?
Yep. And that's personally, I recommend it's especially for someone going for the first time. That's a great starting point. The city is very walkable, and you really don't have to worry about taking a taxi until you go out to some of the like Vedado, Centro. We actually walk through Central Havana.
Okay,
but it's you can walk, and the people, and I mean they'll talk to you. I actually got well, I know I don't have much hair, but I got a shave while I was in one of the local barbershops.
Again, supporting the Cuban people, right?
Yep. So that was pretty cool. And
so I mean, there's all types of things you can experience while you're there to support the country, to support the people. What else did we do? So Malecon, we walked to Malecon. We talked about that as far as supporting the Cuban people, but the Malecon is like a 5-mile stretch that we ended up walking.
Right.
Most of those 5 miles, we actually were. The art factory is another one, man.
Absolutely.
Listen, I don't think I've been to a place like ever that mirrors or even comes close to the art factory.
Yeah.
This place is phenomenal. Like How would you describe it?
I mean, just like you were saying, it's I don't know the exact Cuban terms that they use, but it's, you know, we just relay it, or I guess say that it's the art factory, and everything from they have maybe 15 to 16 different rooms inside of there, and you can go and just, if you want to just go and look at art, you can do that. If you want to listen to jazz, if you want to salsa, they have DJs in some rooms playing house music. They have a hip hop night. We actually saw kind of like, what was it, like the Cuban version of Jabberwockies?
Jabberwockies, yeah,
came through and performed.
So they actually were outside, like in the streets when we
Yeah.
were in line to go in,
Mhm.
and then when we got to one of the, I don't know, one of the dozens rooms that are in there, they came and performed, and literally right after that performance, you turn around and it was a concert. It was a full stage, band, singers, background singers. They did a full concert.
Full concert. I mean, the music was, it's just hard to describe. I try to tell people, you know, the sound or what we heard, and without me letting them actually listen to some of the videos that I made,
right?
I can't even do it justice.
Right. And like I said, it was just a very unique experience. And the art, I mean, it's called an art factory, and they have exquisite art.
Exactly.
And unique. Like the man, like I mean, I have pictures and videos.
Yeah.
But I remember the keys. There were keys on a wall that formed the shape of Cuba.
A shape of Cuba. Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't even know that at first. I'm just, oh, look at these. These are keys. This is so cool. Let me record it. I go back and look at my recording later. I was like, wait a minute. Is this the shape of Cuba?
Exactly.
It was the shape of Cuba made on the wall with literal like house keys, which is crazy.
And I know you got a video of that. It was like a man, or shaped like a man.
Yes.
And at the outside of it was actually like pencils that were maybe 1 to 3 inches in length.
And it was a full-size figure of a body that was easily 5.5 feet tall of pencils, 2.5-inch pencils.
Yeah.
Like, man, like some of the art in there, like, was just, it was just crazy.
And the thing I like about it is you can actually take, I mean, anybody in your family can basically go. I don't know what the age limit as far as youngest can come in. I've heard 16, but they're just not able to drink. But I mean, if you have your 82-year-old, 85-year-old grandmother with you, bring her.
Yep.
Yeah.
We saw everyone in there. A lot, young, middle-aged, older, like literally everyone was in there. It was something for everyone at the art factory. Like literally, it is an enjoyable experience that I would definitely want to do again. I feel like we didn't even, I mean, we were there for, I don't know, 2-3 hours, and I still feel like we there's still pieces of it that we missed.
Yeah.
Right.
Because truthfully, Kim, we actually didn't even get a chance to go through the true art.
Oh, that's right. Because some of it was roped off. Yeah.
And I think the club opens at 7, closes at 2. I think they closed that art section of it at 11 because they figure at that point anyone coming just for the art is probably come and gone.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah. So that was definitely another must see, must try if you make your way to Cuba. What else do we do?
One day, actually the first day that you arrived, we took a taxi to the beach.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So the water at the beach is crazy. I've been to the Caribbean at least, I don't know, half a dozen times. But the water in Cuba is different. It's almost crystal clear.
Yeah.
Like Caribbean water kind of has, I mean, it's clear, it's beautiful. Take nothing away from it. It almost has like a bluish tint to it. But the Cuban water just looks, I mean, it's like almost like perfectly clear.
Yeah. And I kind of wish that we would have, because at this time the water was a little rougher than it's been in the past when I've gone.
Right.
But I have pictures when I went and was actually standing in maybe 3 feet of water, holding, just holding my hand out. And some people could have sworn I was standing in a swimming pool.
Yep.
That's how clear they were. Like, no, there's no way.
There's
That's
no way.
the, you know,
There's no
that's
way
the
that's
swimming pool.
that's
Yeah.
the beach. Like it was
Right.
the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it, experienced it for myself.
Mhm.
Like, man.
Yeah.
So, and technically, we went at the end of February, which is
Yeah.
still technically their winter.
Mhm.
So it still got up mid 80s every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
So it was still very nice weather.
Yeah. Right.
Considering it was their winter. I mean, they're at a place that they don't really get winter like we know winters.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, the beach again, another must see, must do when you go to Cuba. And I don't know, the beach ride was only like 20 minutes, maybe from
20
where
minutes.
we were. So that wasn't bad at all. I think the longest trip was to the cigar farm.
Yep.
And
the thing about going to the beach, the drive, we basically were just walking through the city, and at that point we were like, you know what, let's go ahead and grab a taxi to the beach. We found a guy. He charged us, I think it was like 20 US.
Yeah, like 20
something
bucks
like that.
Something like that.
And the kicker is, so 20 each way. But when we got there, he actually waited for us.
Yes.
I mean, we were there, what, hour and a half, 2 hours?
Probably close to 2, maybe even longer than 2.
Yeah. And he basically said, no, have fun, take your time, have some more lobster on the beach.
Right.
Which I did. And when it was time for us to go, he was right there waiting on us.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Things are pretty inexpensive in Cuba. Like, you're not going to spend a lot of money on anything. Like I mean, not anything exorbitant that you might think when you're talking about lobster. Like, no, this is very affordable food, very affordable restaurants, very affordable drinks, beer. Of course, mojitos is like the thing, right?
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that they're going to advertise when they see you walking down the street. Mojitos, lobster, mojitos.
That's right. And everyone claims that they have the best mojitos.
But I will say this: they taste different there.
Yeah,
they don't use as much sugar, I don't think.
Exactly. And they actually, we saw there was one place called the Super Mojito, and we actually saw the lady, the bartender, making them, and she actually put I don't even remember seeing white sugar as much.
Probably not.
But it was just brown natural sugar that she made the drinks with fresh mint. And I mean, that's couldn't beat it.
Couldn't beat it. Like, you're in the land of mojito and lobster, man. Like, it was definitely a time. So you won't spend a lot of money there. The beer was actually pretty good as well. We drunk some what was it called?
Our favorite was Bucanero.
Bucanero,
Bucanero, which translates to Buccaneer.
Yep. So that one was a pretty good one. Then the other one was the Cuba.
Was Crystal and Crystal, and then there was another one. I can't remember.
I can't remember that one either. But those are good, inexpensive. So again, something else to try when you go there. To Cuba. So definitely encourage you to try it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Great experience. What else? Anything else that we did? Like, it was so much packed into like a 3.5-4 day weekend. So staying in the Airbnb, our host made us breakfast.
Yep, absolutely.
That's something else that I'm not that you can experience it in the US or if you stay in an Airbnb here, but it's just something to say when you're experiencing that culture within another country, that your host is willing to make you breakfast. Like, that was something that they offered to do. And again, it's one of those experiences that's just unique and different in another country.
Absolutely.
So she was very, very good. What was her name?
Leyanis.
So shout out to Leyanis. Definitely appreciate you showing us the hospitality that she did while we were there. A lot of good people that we met through this journey through Cuba, and I would definitely do it again, without a doubt.
Well, this was my third time. I'm right now. I'm already planning like late August to go back. Which I'm not sure why I'm picking that time, because it's probably the hottest time to even But it's a whole different experience. During that time of year, and it's hurricane season, but right here in Charleston,
it's hurricane season.
It's hurricane season,
right. So it's not like you're gonna be in something unfamiliar.
Right. So, but just being able to walk the city and feel like the people they kind of embrace us and bring us into their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And almost during that 3 or 4 or 5 days, whatever time you're there, you actually feel like you're a part of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, some of the same people you see on a daily basis, they're waving at you. And
the restaurant folks, the the cab drivers or the car drivers. I would say cab, but and there was no point in time that I felt unsafe.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, people ask about that as well. Like, oh man, were you scared? Like,
right?
Nope, not at all.
No. And we walked down a few streets that, I mean, literally you had to, turn your flashlight on to see where you were going. And even at that time, we still didn't feel unsafe.
Right. Right. It was, like I said, it was a good time overall. It was 4 of us total that went. So definitely shout out to Greg. So Greg's roots are back in, New Jersey. My roots are originally from Augusta. Your roots are
originally from Washington,
D.C. area. And Chad's actually roots are here in Charleston. So we all come from, very different places. But man, we all enjoy and appreciate it, the experience of Cuba. There has been nothing like it. And we've been to a lot of different places. So what else? Anything we didn't talk about?
No, seems like we kind of, covered it all. Like when we talk about the Malecon, one thing that I can appreciate is that there's the one house that they invited us to come into. I didn't even think about this, but they actually live oceanfront.
They do
oceanfront in a house or in a building that, honestly, Ken and I, we actually went into the building. They actually invited us into their house, and we walked around, and the conditions were, in my opinion, definitely, less than desirable. But not at one point that I feel like, they didn't come across as that they were, unhappy at
all.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they invited us in, right? We would have, to think, people are concerned when the bathroom isn't clean right here, right?
Yeah.
Something just as a comparison. And like Victor was saying, like the conditions were less than desirable, but they're happy people. Like they were like happy to invite us in to see how they live. They were in there cooking and, just relaxing, and they were just talking to us about, their lives, and this is my sister, shake her hand and thank you so much for the gifts, and just little things like that. It's just it's a situation where you quickly realize how you can take things for granted.
Exactly.
Like, and they are like the post you recently published, simple but complicated, right?
Yeah.
They live very simple lives. They do.
Yep.
And I like, you have to respect them for that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's definitely an experience that I would encourage everyone to try to do at least one time.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep. 100%. Like for me being the third time, and at first I just felt like, hey, I'm just going to invite some friends, because I personally knew I was going. If no one else went, I was going to be there. I was going. But just the fact that McKendrick and Chad and Greg entrusted in me to, put the plans in motion, book the place on, because there, a couple of documents that you have to complete before you go. You get a visa at the airport. All simple processes, as long as you know. But that they were willing to entrust in me to say, okay, Vic is putting us on the right path, and booking the Airbnb, having no idea what anything was going to look like. And I'll be honest with you, that was booking through Layanis through Airbnb. I was able to communicate with her through the Airbnb site prior to us going. So I felt comfortable with everything that she was setting us up with, little things like having bottled water in the room. Setting up the breakfast for that Sunday morning. So when I when we finally got there, she actually felt like she knew me. And she walked up to me and like hugged me. Hey, welcome, Victor. I was like,
it's like welcome home.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's an experience. I tell you, I recommend anybody that if you're thinking about going, don't hesitate.
Don't hesitate. Go ahead, just do it. Just do
absolutely.
It.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the experience in a nutshell. Like. From driving, or I should say riding, in all the nice cars from the 50s and 60s. We experienced the beach, all the food, the culture, the Malacone, giving out the gifts.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just nothing that compares to it. So like Victor said, don't hesitate. If you can do it and make it happen, I highly suggest you make it happen. It's definitely one that you want to check off your list to say that you did.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
to say that you've been to Cuba is not a lot of people can say.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you can go. Like we went. Like
we
people
went.
Still think that you can't go there. That's illegal. There's
right. Yeah.
Everything changed. Like things change, but there's a way that you can still go legally, and you're not breaking any laws or anything. So
and just like when people talk about not being able to go, like we said, like McKendrick is saying, that you can definitely go. You just need to know what you can and can't do. And I don't really want to say can't do, because I know some people that have gone over there and stayed in hotels, which that's not recommended for U.S. citizens,
right?
Because it's not supporting the Cuban people,
right?
But one thing I know, I definitely can tell you, take cash with you, because you can't use your credit card.
Oh yeah.
And once you get on that plane,
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. So I legitimately unplugged. So the infrastructure for cell phones is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
So there was Wi-Fi, very, very limited. We had it for like an hour a day, maybe.
Yeah.
And there are times and places that you could go that you may be able to get access. Like there's a Wi-Fi park, I think it is somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't get on it. And honestly, I just took the opportunity to say, you know what, maybe this is time for me to unplug from everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So whether forced or not, I just said, you know what, I'm using my phone as, for one thing, pictures and videos.
There you go. Yeah,
that was it. That's all I did the entire time.
Yeah. And as far as like walking around, there's an app called Maps.me, MAPS.me. Download that before you go. And then while you're there walking around, if you want to just look for a pizza restaurant or whatever, you're tired of eating the Cuban cuisine, you can actually type in pizza and it'll direct you to where that pizza, and it'll map you through just like we use Google Maps here. But you definitely have to download it before you go, and that's that's just one of those little tidbits that I like to let people know. Download that. But like you said, you're definitely off the radar. Well, not off the radar, but you're unplugged.
You're unplugged.
Yeah.
But that's a good one. That's when you start talking about resources. Maps.me is one, and then I had the Google Translate, and I downloaded the Spanish language, because a lot of times when you're using Google Translate, you're using the online. So I downloaded that to make sure I had access to it. So whenever I did need to communicate with someone who did not really have much English, knowledge or experience, and I have a very limited Spanish.
Same here.
Experience. That's another good resource to have. But the financial piece is a big one. There's no access to money. They are not taking credit cards. So you gotta have a kind of a predetermined budget that you have in mind to take that cash with you. And they accept, US dollars in pretty much everywhere you go. I mean, you can get some conversions. They do conversions on the street. If you stay in an Airbnb, your host may do conversions for you and give you a better rate. So that's the thing you got to look out for. Some people are giving you better rates than others. And then when you're asking how, what the bill cost is, you get it in US dollars, or okay, well, what is it in Cuban pesos? And then you can do the math to figure out what kind of rate they're giving you. So Definitely, know what the rates are, what they're going for, when you should do the exchange, and things like that. So that's a good resource from a resource standpoint of things to do kind of prior to getting there.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Again, I would definitely do it again. I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah.
If I can pull off August this year, then I may be.
I hear you.
I might be right there with you, man.
Yeah. And the one thing is, we found out that it's not a super expensive trip. Probably your biggest chunk is going to be the airfare.
The airfare.
But I mean, if you can have an idea of when you want to go and you start checking the airfare, and if it drops, definitely go, because our Airbnb, we actually booked. We had 2 Airbnbs, so Greg and Chad stayed in one, and me and McKendrick stayed in the other. I mean, it's anywhere from as low as $60 a night to $90 a night.
Yeah.
And the cleaning fees, are almost, I don't understand how the cleaning fees are so cheap, but
yeah,
but the cleaning fees are cheap. Yeah, especially compared to what we see in the States.
That's what I was gonna say. Like here, man, people, especially coming out of COVID, man, people were still dropping, $100 cleaning fees. Like, man, come on. But yeah, so yeah, the Airbnbs are, not that expensive. Again, your flight's likely going to be your most expensive ticket when you're trying to get there.
Yeah.
And there are creative ways that you can find flights. Like you flew into Miami or Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
Because the flights out of Fort Lauderdale to Cuba are real cheap. So there's creative ways that you can try to find your airfare, just depending on where you're coming from. To make the trip, less expensive than what it would be. But overall, again, regardless of that, it's worth it.
Yeah,
it's worth
absolutely.
it. And I would say,
without a doubt,
minimum 3-4 days to get the full experience and do different things. And even with that, I still would like to go back, because I know that there's other things that we've still yet to do within Cuba. So,
Yep.
All right, so that is it for this episode 4 of our trip to Cuba and experiencing the Cuban culture. So like, follow, share any of our podcasts so that we can, continue to spread the word about cold-blooded caffeine and the things we're doing out here, and just kind of enjoying the process as we go. So until next episode, this is McKendrick with my co-host this time, Victor, signing out.